Hello and welcome to the value of everything. Now, I will go over one very important topic, and to be honest, all I wrote down in my little notebook was just this one word, but I knew that it had a number of different channels I could go into from this show topic alone, and it certainly did. It did. I wasn't incorrect with my my assertion there. Now, so the topic of discussion today is dehumanization. Now, there's a bit of a mouthful of a word, and it's a little bit tricky in itself because obviously you're using a word of you're the opposite of, and also the other word of human as well. What is it to be human in itself? So that is an interesting factor. Now let's just, I'm just going to simplify being a human being for 1 second and just say that we're an intellectual being of conscious thought, so that we are in charge of our own mind, and we can make free will choices, and we can pursue anything that we require in our lives. And one of the most I guess you do get a little bit of this in other animals, but one of the biggest defining things about humans, or if you think of the word humane, is the empathetic side, or the degree of which we feel remorse, sorrow, the amount that we feel a loss, the amount that we grieve, the amount that we have an emotional attachment to things and people. So that is the empathy side, and that is obviously one of the key factors to success and the social bonding of us as a tribal unit. Now, you obviously get empathy as well in other pack animals. You would find that in dogs, you find that in elephants. There's a number of other pack animals that will demonstrate empathetic reactions to certain situations. So, but it is one of the dominant emotions, and one of the things that really sets us off differently in our degrees. One of the reasons why we require so much empathy is that, well, one of the reasons why we're so successful is because we're using our empathy in the majority of things that we do throughout the day. Whenever we're interacting with another individual, we're required to use the empathy to understand that we cannot just be a being that's just living in the moment and doing everything for our own instant gratification. Because if we found ourselves annoyed with somebody, we'll just slap them around the face. And if we found a number of things, so it basically clicks in the prefrontal cortex, which is the element that sort of controls ourselves and is the element of virtue itself. So demonstrating kindness. So we understand that person is feeling sad, so we put our arm around that person. That is something that maybe we might just not have the emotion to, we might not really feel like doing or anything like that, but yet we put our arm around that person because we know that person feels alone or on their own, so we try and comfort them in these kind of ways or degrees and manners. So it's a number of these little things which obviously make us very humane. Now, where we enter into dehumanization is obviously a very important subject. I've brushed a little bit upon this subject myself in a previous podcast named How to Fight Evil, which sort of demonstrates and highlights things that occurs. But this is one of the most important specific tools which is used, and really is one of the most is the most dangerous one as well. Now, before I go any further, there is also a methodology of thinking that I want to apply to this. Now, there is obviously dehumanization, which is occurring like on a social level or sort of on a statistical level where you're thinking about other people, which does apply, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But then also there is something that I'll try and approach to the end, which may be equally as potentially dangerous, which is the dehumanization that we apply to ourselves by the degree of which we do not communicate in social groups. We sort of isolate ourselves, things like that. So I will sort of just brush upon that. Now, one of the important things about philosophy is the self-empowerment and the empathy and the virtue. So really one of the biggest enemies of philosophy is dehumanization. The more that things are dehumanized, the less there is philosophy in this world. And I would rather you have a lot more self-empowerment so that you can control your mindset, so you can realize that people are human beings and not subjects or statistics or anything like that. And also that you have empathy for other people so that you can obviously seek obviously everybody is this is another thing with philosophy as well, is that we are all self-interested. We live in our own vessel and we are living in our own body, and we obviously do pretty much everything we do to meet some kind of end to ourselves. Now, there is not just purely on a material level that we all just do things. There is certain things of which we carry out virtuous things, and for every virtuous thing that we do get love in response back for that sort of that thing. So now when you describe the word love, it is one's reaction to somebody's being virtuous, not lust, which is more of the appearance, sexual biological drivers, but more so the love aspect to our people's reactions to virtue. Now, so people will be working upon their own self-interest to be loved, in almost, if you could sort of cut down the aspects and make it a little less logic-based thinking. And obviously that love thing will get rebuilt and reciprocated by the more virtue and the more degree of virtue that is being applied from both sides. So obviously I'm like singing the Beatles song, all you need is love. But obviously, before you need the love thing, you need the precursor, which is the virtue. So yeah, there's that thing which is really important. And without that, we do start to show, I guess you could start to use the word evil. So evil really does come quite... Whenever you think about any of the atrocities which happen and the dehumanization which occurs before the evil act has happened, it's always those two things. They're always sitting side by side. There has to be some degree of dehumanization before we go down the route of actually carrying out the atrocity. Now, there's one other little thing that I want to brush upon as well, because one of the things I was thinking to myself, and this obviously just came into my mind recently. There's probably some psychologists that have written about this, but I haven't really researched this myself too much. It's just on my own theories. But acts of certain things which are very hard to perform, like bravery, isn't something that I really carry out with too much sort of overthinking. I sort of, whenever I've carried out a brave act, which doesn't really happen that often, but when it does, I'm usually shutting down my mind and really just working with a little bit of autopilot and limiting my conscious mind, my empathetic mind, of what the other person's reactions are, what the other person's doing this, what the other person's thinking. I'm trying to limit that, and I'm trying to control that to a certain degree to actually perform the brave act. Now, just correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm the only person who does that to actually carry out a brave act, then I might be a bit weird. But I think that probably is a bit of a universal application. And you have to, I guess the word is, reapply yourself to living in the moment to actually carry out the virtuous act sometimes. There is this little reversal of things that need to be done just for you to perform bravery. So that, in essence, that's probably one of the few virtues where there is a little bit of that limitation of empathy which applies. But it is to you're really controlling one's motions again, which is probably painful in the moment, to gain a pleasure in the long term. So I'll give you a fairly decent example. Is obviously where you find a very attractive or nice lady or something like that. You've spent some friendship with them, some time with them, and you want to be a little bit closer to them, but you never really find the nerve to say, would you like to go out for a date sometime? Maybe it's probably required that you just need to just shut down a little bit of the mind in the conscious thought of what she may react and things like that, and then just say the words, how about we go on a date sometime? And see how that flies. So that's just sort of one of the descriptive terms of carrying out that. At least you've been forward and you've showed some confidence and you've showed a little bit of bravery, which is the virtue that the girl may choose to carry out with. And if you think without bravery, you cannot do a lot of tasks in this world, and that's why probably women's first thing in the world is to demonstrate is your certain degree of bravery to go up to the lady and say and ask her for a proposal. So that's probably your first sort of degree of meeting another lady's requirements. Now, let's get back to dehumanization. So there is two. This is just from the outsider's perspective, not your internal perspective of dehumanization. So there's two ways of dehumanizing. Now, this is obviously important to understand because with this information, you have more power, so you can spot it out and you can highlight it whenever it occurs. There is animalistic dehumanization, and there is mechanical dehumanization. So animalistic one is a little bit easier to understand. It's just in terms of where you are pointing out, and it's very interesting how this sort of does tie up with a lot of emotions and the pack animals and the social things and the ostracisms, things like that. It's very interesting how it all ties in with the social structures of us. But the animalistic one is to say, I'm in a group with you, and then I say, oh, he's a pig. He's an absolute pig. So I'm just sort of demonstrating to you that he's just really not thinking about anybody else. He's really just trying to meet his own needs, and he's just really being an animal in the process of doing that. Now, when I say animal, he's just basically they're not being in control of their virtues. They're not being like us. We are higher beings than they are. We are superior beings to them. We're more intellectual. We're more this. We're more that. And they are just horrible pigs. It's that kind of way of demonstrating and manipulating your mind to sort of dehumanize that person so that we become a gang and we think that we are more confident over that subject. Now, confidence is a very interesting thing because obviously once you have this element of superiority, you now will look and you'll walk around the pack being a little bit more broad-shouldered and walking around thinking that you're more superior than the other person. And it's very hard for that other person who's been demonized or dehumanized to feel as good around this group. So it's very important. And obviously the one thing that we can obviously point out here is racism. This does occur a lot in terms of racism. It's more of an insular sort of situation of social connection. So I would say that things like this animalistic terms would happen in schools, maybe happen in families. It's one of those types of dehumanizations which occur, and obviously it can span out to a larger degree. So that's fairly interesting. Now, it doesn't necessarily. Now, it does obviously come out in terms of the state, and with Adolf Hitler saying that the Jews were all rats and things like that. And obviously, when I say animalistic, it doesn't necessarily say that you have to start calling all a certain race or a certain person as like an animal, but you can just say that they're filthy, and you just can use descriptive words to say that they're not being as well performed as what we are. So that's obviously a very dangerous thing. And yeah, what I was trying to touch upon there with Adolf Hitler is obviously it can sweep up the nation, particularly obviously if you've got this one ruling person stating that this is the way it is, that person is scum, that person is filth, these people are scum and these people are filth, these are the reason, these people are the reason why we are so poor, because they are just a leech on society. They're sucking out all the wealth of our pure Germanic blood. And what else? They are the reason why we lost the First World War as well. There's all those little areas in which he was applying animalistic dehumanization. Now, there is the next method of dehumanization, and this is obviously incredibly dangerous as well. And let's just say, for an example, I'm just going to add a little bit of a political touch to this as well. Now, I think I don't know if this theory is correct or not, but you could obviously just disagree with me if I'm wrong. But animalistic social dehumanization potentially may occur. No, I think that I'm sorry. I was just going to go into a theory of just saying that left wing is more associated with animalistic, and mechanized is to do with more so with the right wing. But I don't think that's correct, and I'm just going to scrap that idea. But at least I just sort of put that one out there. I think it does actually happen sort of more in an insular grouping and a large government grouping. So insular grouping is animalistic, even though it did happen on a national scale with Hitler. And mechanical happens on a more of a state side of things, or a government, or a corporation side of things as well. So obviously I haven't really explained mechanical dehumanization, but let me apply that now. So obviously if I say the one person is a tragedy, but 100 people is just a statistic. So I can't say the word. I'm just sort of dehumanizing these people. I'm just saying that these people are just cogs. These are just numbers. These are pieces of note on a book. I'm going to fire all of these people, and I'm not really going to think about any severance pay or anything like that. And I'm not going to think about retraining these people. They're just a cost on my books. I'm not really thinking about the individuals. It's that kind of thing, which is the mechanized dehumanization. So you're just turning them into a robot. They're, rather than being animalistic and very impulsive and animal-like and things like that, you're turning them into this very bland grey nothingness, some statistical number, some prisoner with a number on the back of its neck. You're just really just dehumanizing them to such a degree, to the point of which they just become nothing at all. And That's obviously very dangerous when it's applied into politics and governments and states, where they just say, "Oh, okay, today we lost 350 people today," and the prime minister or whoever goes, "Oh, okay, right. At least we're not losing too many people today." It's just a dehumanization of like the actual people that have lost. It's not to think, okay, well, we've lost 300 people instead of 1,000 people today. It's actually the fact that you're just dehumanizing the fact that these are individuals, these are people who've got lives, these have got emotions, these people cry, these people love other people, and they are funny people. They're blessings. They're just they're really joyous. If they found you fell over in a ditch one day, they would reach out to you and they'll pick you up and they'll pull you out. You're just dehumanizing them to believe that they're just a statistic. And obviously, like, charities companies try to do this a lot. They try to reverse that dehumanizing aspect to people's psyche. Obviously, I know a lot of people can't really apply charity to everybody in the world. It's almost impossible fact to just like give your money away to every charity organization, but obviously a charity organization is trying to tap into empathy and just to say that these are human beings and they're not a statistic. They're not just like this news flash to say that people have had this earthquake and there's a humanitarian catastrophe that's happened. It just sounds like a load of big numbers and it doesn't really mean anything. So it's very important in that respect. Now, also, which is there's different means in which these mechanisms of dehumanization do occur in two different ways. And one of the ones that really like to use this a lot is media. So media will apply dehumanization tactics to fill the narrative that they wish to apply. So if there is increasing immigrants and there's a big sort of uproar in the populace to say we don't want any more immigrants, then they will apply animalistic portrayals of people who will be running over the border, trying to steal money, raping women, and these are evil, slimy, scummy immigrants who are trying to cross the border and to really get their way. Now, obviously, there's the humanitarian aspect as well. These are people that are fleeing from their war-torn environment. They've got nothing to live for. They've got nobody to turn to. And they're pretty much starving and they've got nothing to go on. So yeah, so you do have this portrayal in the media which can dehumanize people. So what else? There is so when you do mechanized applications, now this is normally done by politicians. So when you use applications, you're using the statistics of applying and applications to demonstrate certain things. So now when you say that the economy is doing bad, you think about the poverty aspect and the people that are going to be very poor. Economics is probably one of the best mechanized ways of dehumanization, because whenever you say that you are obtaining further loans, you are obviously impoverishing people in the future, and that means more tax is going to be applied on the youth or the unborn. So there is a fantastic mythology of hidden costs and dehumanization, which is applied with the statistical words of a politician, which gets applied in the world. So where he says that they are going to apply quantitative easing, there is not the fact that we are going to reduce the money supply. Sorry, we're going to increase the money supply, so the money in your pocket is going to be less. So everybody in general is going to experience that there will be, your money is going to go a little less further. and you will be able to buy less things, and you won't see this sort of situation where the kid won't be able to get their a new computer or anything like that. There's none of those stories, and it's such a disconnected dehumanization from the words of an economist or somebody who's the Minister of Finance telling you these statistics compared to the actual hidden story behind something. Or say when it's always with a politician, it's the fact of they're trying to save something, they're trying to help in the moment, but they do not tell you about the hidden costs which can destroy the economy in the long run. And that's always the dehumanization aspect. And obviously, because you're looking at a government who's looking at things in such an incredibly vast degree of multitude of people who are just taking, who they're taxing, they can just choose who to tax whenever they want to choose to tax. And they just state that, oh, the rich requires more taxation, or the middle class requires a little bit more taxation, but they do not see the hidden costs of removing this wealth. Now, if you think of obviously increasing the money supply, the asset allocations of the housing market has just obviously gone incredibly high. So you've got this youth that cannot ever really move outside of their house. Nobody's thinking about these really humanistic sort of terms of youth that really cannot get out of this rut of being stuck inside the house. They're really not given sort of opportunities to purchase like things and assets and factories, whatever they want to try and do, and turn it over into a profit and find efficiencies. They're not seeing that all of this intelligence, this intellect that is being really shot to pieces. They're not seeing this humanistic aspect of the increasing of money supply in the system, or the asset bubbles which are created by maintaining low interest rates forevermore. This is, I know it's a real tricky one to sort of mention, but yeah, you really got to look into the economic side of things when you look at dehumanization. But also, obviously, you can look at the communist parties in the past who were just creating gulags and sending men to war with one person with a gun and the other person with the ammunition, and it's all these sort of dehumanizing factors which do not really apply power to the people. So yeah, it's dehumanization in a mechanical sense does more so happen in a totalitarian party, and it will sort of, and it does happen as well in terms of animalistic as well. Yeah, I'm trying to apply politics as much as I can into this, because I think it is very interesting, and how politicians apply these skills in dehumanization is very important. And if you can highlight it, then obviously you've got a little bit more of a clearer channel of perspective and view. Okay, so let me continue a little bit further. So obviously, one of the major things of dehumanization is that I want to target to think that this person is for a mechanical dehumanization. I want to prevent any individualism. So I want to really brush, and I've sort of gone over this a little bit, just to really keep that person to be as non-existent as possible. Now, let me just cover one very interesting aspect of this dehumanization. And there is an employer out there right now who, if you're a young man and you are probably below the age of 30, they will try to apply dehumanizing theories and tactics upon you for a long time until you are successful. And then they will give you a machine gun. Do you know who this is? This is, of course, is the military. The military has to apply dehumanization to you. So you need to be very... obviously, you cannot be a soldier and be empathetic to everybody's needs. You cannot, obviously, shoot another person if you had empathy for the opponent. So the major one thing that the army does teach you and train you in is dehumanization, to destroy the enemy at all costs. And basically giving you the perspective of that your military or your army is superior, or this is your brotherhood, this is your family, and the opposition are trying to rape your women, all this kind of stuff, and you must destroy them as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So one of the ways in which the military does make dehumanize the opposition is they dehumanize the actual individuals themselves. So they will regiment them and keep them within a degree of non-individualism, so that they have to be orderly and have the same esteem of how their bed is made, and there's no real individuality. They cannot have like a poster on the wall of something that they represent. They must be nullified to the mechanical degree in which they can apply dehumanization upon another force. So it's really important in that sense to think about these things, because obviously a government and the military goes hand in hand to a degree, and you can almost start to brush upon the police force as well, whereby a lot of police force can have a little bit of institutional racism, and maybe they may see the criminal aspect as just these people that are just born on this earth as bad as hell, and they're just carrying out bad acts, or they're just drug dealers, they're evil criminal drug dealers, and it's their job to protect society from these animals who are destroying social society. There's all of these elements which get applied in government-based majority rule situations, and when you have majority rule situations, obviously you do dehumanize. So there is this thing as well, where if you are trying to dehumanize, one of the important things, if you think of the First World War, when it was a Christmas and the two sides started to play a football game with each other, a soccer game with each other on Christmas Day, and sing Christmas songs, like Silent Night and things like that. The problem with that is obviously you are creating a bond and empathy between the two factions, the two sides. So where the army and the military have been trying to dehumanize them and say that these... I remember seeing one sort of propaganda movie from the British side to say that a German thinks twice as slowly as a British soldier and stuff like that. And I'm sure it was probably applied the opposite way. And it's this application is obviously to create an immense amount of distance between the two factions, or even social distance between the two factions. So if anything like that happened, obviously they have to put a stop to it straight away, the military. And obviously as soon as they heard that the two factions were doing that, the generals obviously called them in, and I think maybe they even punished them. I'm not too sure about that last bit, but I think there possibly would have been some kind of discipline that would have happened for showing any kind of empathy for the opposition. But it's important to distance oneself for dehumanization. So if you think about like where you're in the working force and stuff like that, the closer that you are to the management, there's probably a little less, as long as you're a nice person and stuff like that, there's a little less of a chance that you're going to get fired. But if you are some guy that works a million miles away from the management team, they're not really too bothered about somebody that's never even contacted them in their life, and to say, okay, well, I don't really know this person, we can get rid of them. They're not being providing too much value for us in this world. And obviously, there's one key little value to the world. There's obviously the economic value that you're providing, but also for an employer's perspective, they might be just generally a nice person. They might find them quite pleasing to work with, and obviously having nice people to work with is a very pleasurable, valuable thing to have around. Nobody really wants to work with a load of shits. That could obviously give you bad health. So, yeah, there is a definite element of where dehumanization happens. It is a fact of social distance. Also, there was something I wanted to go with this social distance element. I don't know if you could think about this for yourself, but yeah, I think it was more to do with the military than anything else. But yeah, if you think of it to all these things, whenever you apply things, especially like if you think about here's a good one for you. So there is obviously one area of social distance that we are massively different from in Western society, and that is probably terrorism. So terrorists are obviously, with the word alone, if Confucius says, firstly use words for their own means. So a terrorist is also, dependent on the perspective that you take, is also a freedom fighter. So if you think of like Muslim terrorists and stuff like that, they, from their perspectives, believe that they are doing what is right in accordance to their God. They are the ones who are pursuing virtue, and the Western empires are trying to control the world. They're trying to control their land. They're trying to take their wealth away. They're invading their land. They're trying to take the oil. They're using they're using sort of like the areas as military bases. They're an invasion force. They never really wanted anything to do with this in the first place, but they have invaded their land, and they are fighting for the freedom of their people. They are the virtuous. They are the noble ones. And then obviously from the administrations and everybody else, we animalize the terrorists by firstly calling them terrorists. They are this mad tribe, this insane people who are trying to carry out incredible atrocities where they are destroying human lives. They're just innocent people that are being destroyed for no reason at all. Why would they do such a thing, which is incredibly animalistic? This is animalistic dehumanization on the part of applied to the terrorist. And obviously how you can see it applied on both sides. And obviously this is the reason why there is a gigantic war. Obviously the use of force, which was the initiation of force, which is applied from the onset, is obviously the most dangerous thing. But you could obviously track back to a load of little problems which occurred, probably all existing probably from the First and Second World War. But you can see how this carrying out of dehumanization occurs, and it does create this warring faction between two people. And it is obviously, once we determine and we understand what dehumanization is, and everybody is more learned in these factors, then we have peace more so than anything else. And that's why it's obviously such an important thing. Now, there are areas of dehumanization which does happen as well in other social means, and I'll give you one of the more prevalent ones, which I've experienced before as well. Is objectifying things. So this is this obviously, that I think obviously most women are aware of this, but you get a group of lads who are in a bar or in a pub, and they will start to look at a lady and they'll objectify her in just purely her physical attributes, not seeing her anything deeper than the way that she appears. So she is being objectified into almost pornography. So she is something of sexual desire more than anything to do with her intellect or her virtues or anything else that she may be quite well performed in. So there is an application of, and obviously I think it does get applied as well to women do apply this to men as well. Oh, he's hot stuff. But in terms of objectifying, it does occur, and obviously it does remove ourselves from seeing that individual as a person. And obviously, if you are just purely objectifying women as just these pieces of porn meat, then really you're just being lustful, and you're not being really full of love. And then you question to yourself why you're not experiencing love in your relationships, and hence why that it's the fact of you applying yourself in a world of lust instead of looking at one's virtues. So yeah, there is this element of objectifying, and it obviously this can be pushed on a little bit further in terms of, what shall we say? Yeah, so this is obviously objectifying is obviously where we can apply groups, and we're doing stereotypes. So I'm stereotyping geeks. So geeks just go around, all they want to do is talk about comic books and computers, and they don't really, and this is, I'll try and dehumanize them now, so they don't really have any like fun. They just keep themselves. They're just a bit weird. They don't really socialize in groups. They don't really want to be anything social. They're a bit of loners, and they sometimes hang around with each other. They play weird little card games, and they're just some weird little pointless aspect of society. Do you see how I dehumanize like geeks, for example? It's applied, and it can be applied on a lot of scales and a lot of levels. But the important thing with philosophy is to seeing people as individuals. Everybody has got their own genetic structure, which has been built over millions and millions of years to get to that stage of which they are, of evolution. So that is obviously very individual in its own aspects, the way that they have been raised, even if they are a sibling of the same family. There's been all these different many things which have been applied in their environmental structure and everything else to obtain to the point of which they are. So I don't want to go in too much into determination. Totally opposite of determinism. But yeah, there is a way in which dehumanization does get applied, and really obviously the important lesson is to really keep people as individuals, seeing everybody as an individual, hold them to a higher esteem, be as kind and as generous and as virtuous as you can to that person. If they don't start to reciprocate, or if they're really unkind or they're abusing you, obviously then remove that to them. But once we start to like standing in a group of men, and then one starts to say, oh yeah, they're all the same, the management, or yeah, they're all the same, those workers, you can see that there is a slight element of objectifying or dehumanization which is just about to occur, and there is going to be some kind of sweeping or broad statement which is going to categorize everybody as being the same. And there is a certain mythology of animalistic dehumanization tactics, which sometimes it just is. Obviously, I think majority of the time it is unknown, and nobody really, unless there's very intelligent narcissistic people that are using this sort of information just for their own means. But usually people are acting off of impulses and environmental things and social structures to say these type of things. There is obviously elements that if I can get you to think the same way as that I can, and make you feel like you're part of me, then we're a team, and then we're this group of philosopher kings, and we can conquer the world together, and we should really be the superior race, and all that kind of stuff. So there is that element, which is a very dangerous little bit of a a tool which we can apply on societies and social structures, where I can start manipulating people to really make them feel a bit more special than maybe they even are. And I can really start to just sort of get them to sort of sway to my way of thinking. This is obviously, I've got a lot of these things, particularly if I'm one of the people that are just talking to you right now and you're the only person, I'm the only person that you're listening to. It's kind of dangerous because obviously I can just sway you into one sect of thinking to another. Hopefully where I just try and brush over a lot of things and I try and keep onto philosophy and humanitarianism and things like that. I'm trying to not get you too far into this dehumanization factor and more so into the good factor, but it's obviously, it depends on who you choose to spend time with and who you choose to listen to as to how it changes your mind and your thought patterns and the way that you think. So it is all very important, dehumanization, and I've got a few other little bits I want to just brush upon in a sec. Let me just park, because I can't park to save my life as always. I used to be good at parking. I don't know why I've lost the skill to park. So I guess sometimes you have it, you don't have it. All right. Okay, so yeah, that'll do. All right, so what do we have? Yeah, I've mentioned a little bit about the corporations and how they can dehumanize, the terrorism. One very interesting point about this, and if you think about intelligence, I think everybody would love to be as intelligent as possible and things like that, is that they say that there is, whenever somebody is dehumanizing, whenever like there's certain acts, so whenever I'm trying to dehumanize you and I'm trying to make you kill another person or whatever is happening in that situation, as I said, as I mentioned about like bravery and stuff like that, there is a shutting down of the brain, and they've done certain studies to see that the prefrontal cortex is being extremely deactivated in terms of dehumanization. So if you think of our brains are there to flourish, to grow, to like be this organic root which is always connecting and growing further and further and further. But the toxin is this thing of dehumanization. It's shutting down your brain. It's making it less so and less so. And obviously, if you think of a child, if it's being more dehumanized, if it's being slapped and hit and not really being shown how to care and be kind or virtuous, you are shutting down that kid's brain. It's getting more so and more so tucked down to being like the switched off mute killing machine. And if you think of like the Spartans that were like taught from an early age to fight and war and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure that they demonstrate no empathy whatsoever, and they had a total shutdown or a diminishment of the prefrontal cortex. So if we want to be humans, if all this stuff, this hardware that's or this liquidware which has been given to us through this evolution of time, really it is the fact of where we want to become better and more so. We really want to apply ourselves with more empathy, and dehumanization is a virus. It is a trick of the mind which can shut down certain areas of our minds to make us think less about people and to really just shut our minds off. And it is one of the sort of the blinkered ways of controlling, mind control. So be very, very wary of this this technique. So there's another little area of techniques, and I just want to brush upon something about techniques of neutralization. So whenever somebody is doing these evil acts or demonstrating these acts, or they've been caught for these acts or anything like that, there is a certain neutralizing factor of really putting themselves outside of the guilty subject. So you catch one of these people being this dehumanizer, dehumanizers. So say I can't remember what the bloody Nuremberg trials for the Nazis, when they were put up in front of everybody, and I think there's only Göring was the big one. They put them up, and they would apply techniques of neutralization just to sort of again still trick the mind as to make them feel less guilty of themselves. So one of the things was a delinquent or somebody who has been found guilty would express guilt over the illegal acts. So they would just say, "Oh, I feel really guilty of what I've done. I really didn't think that what I was doing." They would apply themselves in being very respectful of people that were honest and virtuous. So they say, "Yeah, I do agree with these people that are virtuous. I don't know how I didn't see these things happening." These are also these people that do apply dehumanization. They will use this tactic. So obviously, I'm just trying to just highlight to you just how these people can apply these things. So there is a line which they know is drawn between ones that they can apply a dehumanizing tactic to and ones that they can't. So some guy might be able to really work on some other kids to really make them think that, I don't know, like young Chinese kids are evil. But when they come over to you and they try and say that to you, you obviously just laugh in their face and say, that doesn't make any sense to me. I know kids, they're fine. What are you talking to me about like that? So they know pretty quickly that they can't work you, or they probably don't even try it with you, because they know that they've got a certain intellectual ability of distincting these things. So people that are these manipulators will really draw a line between those who they can victimize and those that they cannot. And you got to be just very wary of that. Also, that they will try to hide themselves in terms of being conformists to society. So you've got to be very wary of dehumanizers and how they can conform to society very rapidly. If beforehand they were being very dehumanizing, and then all of a sudden certain rules and regulations have applied for them to stop being racist or whatever else, and then they also all of a sudden apply themselves to be conformists. Now, obviously, there could be harboring certain ill views, but you've just got to be very wary of that factor when these dehumanizers apply themselves in this world. So remember that whenever these get caught out and they these dehumanizers get pointed and they get accused, some of the methodologies that they will apply is they will apply a denial of responsibility. They will say that they were into a situation that was out of their control. They were like in this Nazi propaganda machine. They were carried out orders by their generals, and really, if they disagreed with their generals, they could have been punished or killed or murdered. So it really wasn't a situation within their control. So that's one of the usual tactics in terms of a dehumanizer trying to get wriggle themselves out of free will and making their own choices. They will just try to dehumanize. They'll just try to take the power away from themselves and say it was somebody else. And really, obviously, a philosopher will directly put all your choices and all your decisions into your hands and make you fully responsible for your actions. Another one would be, he wasn't really hurt. He was only just we was all just having a laugh. It was just a bit of to and fro. He didn't really matter anyway. I mean, he was all right. He came to us the next day. There was no problem there. So yeah, they will deny any injury. They'll deny that there was any harm or caused or damage from the dehumanizing aspect of what was being perpetrated. So just be very wary of those little tactics. There's another one as well in terms of the person wasn't really a victim, and he really deserved what he got. Like did deserve that punishment for what he was being. He was being really he was being a pig, and us taking away the food from him was a good idea. And obviously I'm not really quite describing a perfect sense there, but if you deny that the person was a victim in the first place, or you say that they deserved it, or there was any kind of victimhood in the first place, then you are just really avoiding the lasso, and you're just escaping out of it and trying to obviously fog people who are really trying to demonstrate certain amounts of justice in this world. Another thing as well is that they will shift the blame away from themselves and point the finger directly at somebody else. So, he was extremely evil there. I can't believe what he was doing. He was the ringleader. I was just a bystander in the whole ordeal. This obviously happens in a lot of criminology as well, but they will always point out to the ringleader or somebody else that was really carrying out the actions. He was the brains behind this outfit. I was just one of the people that were just going along in the system. So just really always be wary of that little Paul. So yeah, and then there's things of just saying that I was really doing it for the greater good of humanity. We really wanted to rid the world of Jews because they were really a bludgeon to our economies. So I thought it was for the greater good of society. This was what I was told. I thought this was going to be the accomplishment of these actions. I didn't feel that these were good things at the time while I was murdering these Jews, but I really thought that this was going to improve lives for everybody in the future, which is like some really weird way of virtue that you're going to apply to yourself there. So just remember these little these words of "it was not my fault, it wasn't a big deal, they had it coming, you were just you were just as bad in your day, and my friends needed me. What was I going to do in that situation?" So yeah, these are neutralizing arguments which dehumanizers will apply once you've caught them. So be very wary. Point them out, and be brave. You'll never regret a brave moment, especially when you've been applying yourself to virtues. The last thing that I would like to brush over in dehumanization is the terms of how we dehumanize ourselves. Now, if you think about ourselves being very social beings and empathetic, one of the more dangerous things that you could potentially see is how we make choices in our own lives to go in this route of being non-empathetic people. And if you could think to yourself, these mass shootings, these mass killings which occur and things like that, this really has potentially, there is some kind of element of outside bullying which is occurring to that individual at first, but then there is a certain element of choice of isolation upon that that kid or that person who is really going into their own world, making their own choices, and really getting a little bit tucked away from society, going onto their computers and finding information as to what they believe is true. So if I believe that there should be the white Aryan race should be in power again, or I believe in black power, whatever I'm looking for, I will find that on the internet, and it will suit my means. So there is a certain element that you can really apply dehumanizing aspects to yourself, and you've got to really realize the degree to which that you're applying it sometimes. And obviously there's dehumanization in a physical manner as well. And I guess there's, if you see somebody on a chat room and you talk to them, you can obviously just go a little bit crazier. So obviously if you're a guy and you're speaking to a girl, then you're instantly going to, a lot of men are just going to go very sexual straight away. And when you've, but you wouldn't so in a normal face-to-face social situations. So you've got to just be very wary with this dehumanization factor which occurs in the virtual realm. And yeah, there is certain elements and contraptions of society. If you think of when we go around our world, we always just carry this mobile with us now, and we stick our heads down to these things, and we don't really socialize or bond or have little chit chatters in the lift anymore. We just really just shut ourselves away from society and use these little contraptions, which potentially could be a fairly dangerous dehumanizing factor to ourselves. And if you think about Aldous Huxley, it's the choices that we potentially make, not other people, or the totalitarian system, which really affects the way in which we are being dehumanized. It's really the choices that we make, rather than the George Orwell perspective of this totalitarian system, which is applying this dehumanizing system. And obviously, the most dangerous way of which to convince oneself is by your own manner. If you get somebody else telling you something, then obviously you can always have some certain degree of skepticism as to whether they're saying something true or not. But if you are self-convincing that what you are saying, which is dehumanizing of others, is true, and you are highly convinced of that fact, there is no harm in you going down to the gun shop if you're an American and buying yourself a gun and then shooting down people, because you are convinced in your own mind that what you think is true. You can find certain knowledges to back up your claims and everything else. So just be very wary of this factor. It is highly dangerous, and really the most dangerous element of dehumanization is when you convince oneself. Once you have convinced yourself, there is a really hard point of no return, and it would take an immense amount of antidote to actually alleviate that problem. Really, prevention is far better than cure in terms of dehumanization. So to be giving you these ideas and thoughts just before you approach your life in terms of the way that you think about things and social structures is going to be far better than you to go entrenched into your own view that people are demonizing you and they are not really of this world. They're dehuman, or they're not really human beings. They're not empathetic people. They're really just scum. That's where it's a very dangerous matter, and I do warn you. So, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, giving out this important information. If you think I've said anything out of turn, or if I'm really incorrect, or you've got any comments or thoughts as to how you can build upon this podcast, I will be very pleased and welcoming of any views. And we have very important responsibilities as being humans, and particularly the ones that are going to be a little bit more enlightened than the ones who are really not in contact with this information not as much. The ones that don't really watch the History Channel and things like that, they can't see the things which have happened in the past repeat itself in the future. It's always around economic hardship times that people are getting pointed the finger at, so just be very wary of that factor. And if it happens on the state level or the totalitarian level, that's where the mass killings and all the dangerous things can occur. So be the first ones to speak up early, because if you speak up too late, things get really out of control. So with those thoughts, I thank you very much for your time, and I will be in touch very soon. Goodbye.